I am really excited to share this series of Terry's Tidbits with you. As you may already know, Salesforce is encouraging us to use Flow for our automations. But nearly every admin I know has told me Flow is intimidating. In this series of 8 videos, we're going to tear down the walls of intimidation. Each video will focus on a single Flow element. We'll see what it looks like in Process Builder. Then we will build that same functionality in a record-triggered flow. My hope is that once you see how similar they are, you'll be ready to transition to the wonderful and powerful world of Lightning Flow. Now, I don't want you to miss a single video, so hit that subscribe button. Also, check out terrystidbits.com to download the cheat sheets that correspond with each video. A new video will be released each week until all 8 have been shared. In this second video, we're going to look at the decision element. This is almost identical to what you're used to building in Process Builder, but Flow can do even more with decisions. Let's dive in and take a look. Welcome to video 2 in this series of moving from Process Builder to Lightning Flow. In this video, we are going to focus in on the decision element. In Process Builder, that decision element looks something like the blue diamond that you're used to. You name that decision element in Process Builder, and then you assign your criteria. When we look at this in Flow, it's not going to be the blue diamond, but it is going to be a diamond, and it's going to look like what you see here on the screen. We are also going to label it, and we're going to set our criteria. We're also going to see something that's a little bit distinctly different with Flow. That's something that you can't do within Process Builder. So let's jump in. Let's go over and look at our Process Builder. This is the one that we worked on in the first video. We're going to use this throughout our training. And we are going to scroll down here to the CSAT rating of unsatisfied. Here's our naming convention that we have. I'm just going to copy that to make my life a little easier later. And you can see that when the account CSAT rating equals unsatisfied, then we are going to do something over here in these immediate actions. Now in this video, we're not going to do the immediate actions. All we're doing is the decision element. But I also want to click on the Advanced tab here and open this up to where you will see that this particular decision only runs when the rating first is set to unsatisfied. All right, so that's what we're going to simulate as we build this out in Flow. Okay, so let's jump over to Flow. You will see that I've got 2 flows that I've created. We have the before record trigger flow. This is the one that we created in the first video. And then we also have an after record trigger flow. I created this after the initial video was created, and we're going to use that after record trigger flow in a future video. But for now, we're going to stick to the before record trigger flow. So let's go ahead and open this up. And in here, we have, just as a refresher, the account object. This is the before the record is saved, and it is when the record is created or updated. In between this start element and our end element, we have this little plus sign. And I can click on that plus sign, and it brings a new Add Element screen up for me. I've got just 4 items here that I can do. And I like the fact that it's 4 items because for those of you who are learning, this means you don't have to worry about 1,000 other different options here. You're going to just focus in on these 4 items, and that just makes it easy. In this video, we are looking at the decision element. So let's just simply click on decision. Now, I need to give it a label, and I typically follow a naming convention that might look something like this. And just because I'm picky, I get rid of the spaces. And that gives us a name for the decision. So DESC for me just means that it's a decision. And that's helpful for when you're dealing with larger flows. It's really just easy to be able to say, okay, these are all my decision elements because they all have that same naming convention. Now, moving down to the middle section of the screen, we have what is our outcome detail. This is the criteria that is used to determine whether or not we want to go down this path where this criteria is true. It's called an outcome. So let's jump in here to this resource, and I want to scroll down and show you this element right here called $record. $record is what Salesforce will call a global variable, and it is your friend. $record represents the record that triggered this particular flow. So you can see that it's labeled as the account. That's because the account is the record that triggered this flow. Let's click into that, and you will see now you have a list of all of your account fields. You can scroll down this list if you like, but in our use case, we are looking for that CSAT score. There it is, CSAT rating equals, and this is awesome in that all of the pick list values also show up for me in Flow. Now, why do I say that's awesome? Because when I first started doing Flow, it didn't do this. So it is fantastic. Salesforce has gotten Flow so much smarter where all your pick list values show up for you, very much like it does in Process Builder. So thank you, Salesforce, for that. That is fantastic. It makes life so much easier. So in this particular case, we're going to choose unsatisfied. So we have our $record account, CSAT rating equals unsatisfied. In Process Builder, account rating equals pick list unsatisfied. Now there's one other piece here in the Flow that we have to do that's a little bit unique to Flow. Flow has the option of having multiple outcomes. In Process Builder, we had a true path and we had a false path. Here we can have multiple paths. And because of that, we have to label our path so it's either true or false. And because we can have multiples, we can't really use true and false, so we're going to give it a different name. And I'm just going to simply call it unsatisfied, because that's what it is. So if I want to go down the unsatisfied path, that's what it's going to be called within our Flow. All right, so now that we have our label of unsatisfied, the other piece that we needed to do that was in our Flow was we only wanted this to run down this particular path when it first meets this criteria. So we have at the bottom of our criteria is when to execute the outcome. And we want to execute the outcome only if the record that triggered the flow to run is updated to meet this specific criteria. So we're going to simply check that radio box, and that will mean that we will only do this when CSAT rating first is set to unsatisfied. Now, I mentioned we could have multiple paths. If for some reason you wanted to do that, all you have to do is click on this little plus sign. And let's, for fun, say I wanted to go down the satisfied path. I can have a path, another path, we'll call satisfied, that uses $record. CSAT rating equals, whoops, not unsatisfied, satisfied. Okay, so now I've got a unsatisfied path, a satisfied path, and a default outcome path. I don't really like the default outcome path. I kind of like it to be called continue. You can choose whatever you want to call it, but all that is the equivalent of evaluate my next criteria. So if you like that evaluate next criteria, that's really all this is that default is saying if the first condition isn't true, if the second condition here isn't true, then just fall through, move on down to the next element within our flow. So let's go ahead and say we are done. And notice here, it gives you multiple paths within this view. We have our unsatisfied path right here. We have our satisfied path in the middle. And then we have the default, that continue, that will move on through a different path. So if now I wanted to add something to the unsatisfied, I simply will click on that, and I have the ability to add additional elements. I can have an entirely different process for the satisfied, and then continue, because of what it implies, we're not going to add anything here. It would just move on to our next decision point, to where we can decide whatever it is that we want to do after we have completed the work on the CSAT unsatisfied rating. So with that, in our next video, we are going to go down this unsatisfied path. I'm going to delete the satisfied because we're not going to use it. And we will talk about record updates. So when we go down unsatisfied, we are going to update that account record, and then we're going to update the priority field. So stay tuned for next week's video on updating records. Thanks for tuning in. I hope this is helpful.